we have here in this session is the use of motion and of really very intelligent use of smart objects, or smart art it's called in PowerPoint. This has been something I have found as I've worked with attorneys and made presentations to clients at meetings and in court, that the use of the animation and the use of smart objects has really been a compelling way of getting your point across, presenting the information in such a way that you're not boring people. The worst thing that you can do when you're presenting data is to get people bored to death. So that's why I find that this session 5, is pretty critical for the use of PowerPoint in making your presentations. Even the most boring spreadsheet can become something that intrigues the viewers when you're using the animation and the smart objects that we're going to be looking at right now. So what I'm going to do is start out by showing you some examples, and then I am going to actually demonstrate for you how to do these things. Now, it does talk about creating animated GIFs using PowerPoint and Mojave. I don't want to really spend a lot of time on how to create the GIFs in PowerPoint and Mojave, but I did put 2 YouTube videos that will cover that information for you after the session is over. How to create an animated GIF using PowerPoint in conjunction with another program called Mojave, which you can download. And then if you have Photoshop, this video shows you how to go ahead and make animated GIFs in Photoshop. So, but I do want to show you how useful they are and how to use the generally available GIFs that are already out there. I seldom create GIFs myself. I find them out on the internet, and I'll show you how to find them as we go along here. But if you do need to create a GIF, and I've done that a couple times for trials, there are free GIF programs for your smartphone. And earlier, in an earlier session, I showed you one of those that I will hopefully get to show you here again in this session. So you can use your smartphone to actually create GIFs that you can't find on the internet. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the GIFs that are available and how useful they can be, as well as some of the smart art. So I'm going to come back up in this presentation here, and on this slide I'm going to, my wife is a writer, and she wrote an article for the International Pen magazine, and at the Pen World Convention that's coming up here in St. Louis, I was asked to create an animation using the PowerPoint program. And so what I've done here is created an animation using this hand tool that has a pen in it, and then also used a special animation tool called Custom Path, or Custom Animation. Let me show you what it looks like. So you can see the pen is tracing over the letters, and it looks like it's actually writing them on the PowerPoint slide. And then after that, I just animated the words to come in one after another down below. So that's one way to use a GIF. That's what this is, a GIF that is not animated. It actually is a still GIF image. But what I did is I used the animation feature of PowerPoint to cause it to trace over these letters. So that's one way to use a GIF that even isn't animated. So I just grabbed this off the internet, popped it on this slide, and then I used the custom animation path tool to to cause it to do this. Now you can imagine if you were in front of a client and you wanted to keep their attention with some text, and you had a hand actually write out the text on the screen in this animated fashion, how much more compelling that is than if you just simply have the words on the PowerPoint screen showing there. So this is one reason why I've done this. So this actual animation will be shown on a large panel screen advertising not only Margie's article, but also the Pen World magazine itself. Now I'm going to go to another slide in which I've created a little animation using, now this GIF that I'm using on this show over here is an animated GIF. And so it does have movement within itself. So I didn't have to animate it. I just grabbed it off of the internet and then popped it down on top of a map of the area that I have to show how to get from one place to another on a map. So you could bring up a map and just show it, and then you could take your mouse and you could move along and show the path to get to a particular event or a location. If that was the purpose, or if it was in a trial and you were trying to show where the person had started from and where they, what path they took to get to a certain location. If that was part of the evidential information, you could do an animated kind of a GIF that wasn't so cartoonish, of course. But let's see what this one looks like here. So here's the animated GIF wagging a flag. And now I click a button. And again, I used a custom path to actually cause the vehicle to move along to the location where I wanted people to find. And so they come to the St. Louis Art Museum. So that is the way that worked. And again, if you look closely, you can see the little dotted ant trail that I drew with the custom animation brush to get the car to go to the right location across the across there. Here's another example of using an animated GIF. This is an airplane, and I did use the custom animation path again, and I drew the line from out there in Oregon all the way to St. Louis. So let's see how this one works here. So I click to start it, and then the plane shows the path that it will take to get to St. Louis. The reason for that might be that someone might be wondering what other stops they could make along the way if they are coming to St. Louis from Oregon, where the plane might be able to land or might land or something of that kind. So that's an animated GIF that follows a path. Now here's another example of using an animated GIF as an illustration, and I'm going to start this out. And this is a picture there in Oregon or Seattle somewhere. And so when I start this animation, I have a little sound that goes with it. So we have an eruption there. Let me try that again. So you can synchronize the animation that you're creating with the GIF with the sound as well. And then we have a factory situation, which is animated with animated GIFs again. And so we start out without any animations at all, and then we put in the animations. Again, one could just create, say this was a case about pollution, and you were wanting to show how much smoke is being exited out of these smokestacks into the local environment. And let's say you have this picture and you have the statistics that would show up maybe in a graph. Well, while the graph is on there, or the chart or the spreadsheet of how much pollution is being put in the air, you could animate these smokestacks to make a compelling presentation on that particular point. And then again, here's a satellite image of someplace, and if we wanted to animate the person, where the person have to go to get to a certain location, we could animate the GIF along the satellite image and take them there instead of on a map. So those are some examples. I wanted to show you some others here as well. Let me see if I can bring this up here. This is another example of that animated hand. So I'm going to play this one. And you see this time I have to go a little faster and speed it up a little bit. Okay, so that's a couple examples of how you can use an animated GIF, a still GIF, and animate it. So let me go ahead and show you some other animated GIFs here that I've downloaded from the internet, and this one here. So this is not an animated GIF, it's text that I've animated to come bouncing in. We'll get into the animation feature in a little bit here. But then this next icon is a animated GIF that I downloaded. And then the smoking gun are actually two animated GIFs, the gun itself and then the smoke that comes out, and I reposition these. And then here's an animated GIF that has the animations this way. I used the animation tool in PowerPoint to bring it into the slide. And this is just an animated GIF with no animation created using PowerPoint. And then here's a number of animated GIFs. Now over here I've got an example of overlays. You can see, you can zoom in on this one. This animated GIF I have on top of another animated GIF in the background, and then this is an animated GIF also. So I place these in front of this other animated GIF and give you this kind of effect. And then these are just animated GIFs. I didn't do anything to them, just downloaded them and popped them onto this slide. And go to another slide here. And now there's a whole bunch of other animated GIFs. Of course, now this is an example of having too much. If you're going to use animation, whether it's using the PowerPoint animation feature or the animated GIF feature, you get way too much animation. It can be distracting, as this slide is, and that's why I've used it. Now I can click my down arrow key and bring in another. So that was an animated GIF that I brought in with the animation tool in PowerPoint. And now here are two animated GIFs put together. And this is a GIF that is not animated. Just a GIF that has the this particular feature. I'll show you why I did that in a moment. This is another GIF that isn't animated. It just has some text in it for e-discovery. And then these are also just GIF files that are stuck on a slide with no animation. And this is one that has a still part of the GIF and a moving part of the GIF. And you can find those for all kinds of topics and subjects, and you can make them yourself. And then this is, again, a couple of GIFs without any animation, and two GIFs without any animation, and a couple more with no animation applied. And here's a GIF that has a portion of itself animated. Another still graphic, a GIF file. And here's an animated GIF that has a portion of it animated. I didn't animate any of this. I just found this animated GIF and liked the way the GIF looked at the circle and the process that was being demonstrated here. And now here are two animated GIFs. Now this one over here on the right, I did animate, and I used an animated GIF program on my phone called IMG Play. And you can take separate pictures of two items, and then you can make them flip back and forth as many times as you'd like. And now this has got a number of animated GIFs on the screen. And then this graphic here of a person kind of getting an idea is an animated GIF too, with two pictures. The same picture, I brought them into Photoshop and then doctored up one of those pictures so that it looks like he's getting an idea, a flashing idea. So you can bring it into a program and animate it like that, like Pixlr. You could do it in Pixlr, free photo program that I'll be demonstrating more of next session. But again, these are all just animated GIF files. So now what I want to do is go out on the internet, and let's say I'll create a new slide here, a blank one. And let's say I want to go out on the internet now and get some animated GIF. So I'm going to go to Google, and this is the way I would suggest you do as well. Just go to google.com. Yeah, start over here. And then when you type in your searching, you almost always want to have animated GIFs with transparent backgrounds. Not all GIFs have transparent backgrounds. So I type in animated GIF, transparent background. And then if I wanted to get you can see I've searched for some already. If I wanted a car, or let's say maybe automobile, and hit enter. And then once you do that, go up to images. And then you'll see all sorts of GIFs that are there. You don't see them animating until you actually click on them. And then wait for a second or so. And then if it's an animated GIF, it will start to move. If it isn't, usually, even though you're told to search for that, you didn't get one. So I'm going to click this one and see if this one works. Yeah, there's an animated GIF. You can see it's got the lights. And you notice the grid in the background? That is an indication it is a transparent background. And that's really important when you're using GIF files, because you want to usually put these in front of other things. Now to get this into my PowerPoint, I can just right button click and then just pick copy the image, and then go back into my PowerPoint and right button click and paste it. So I have it into my slideshow. So now I can increase the size of it by grabbing these points, like so. And then I can test it out by just running that slide. And you'll notice this one is a pretty low res graphic, TIFF. It's got jaggies in it. So probably wouldn't, I'd look for something with a little bit more detail in it instead of this one. But for my purposes of demonstrating this, it'll suffice. Now I want some kind of a background behind it, not white. So I can right button click, and I can go to format the background, and I could put a gradient fill in there. And you'll notice now that the background around the GIF is transparent. That's why it shows through. And that's important because let's say that instead of that type of background, I wanted to put in a picture. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to a picture or a fill and insert a picture from a file. And I'll go out here and find a picture to use that might be of interest. I'll grab this one. And once you put the picture on the slide, you have this one looks like it's a water car, but I can shrink it down and I can have the image go up and grab it, make it smaller, go up the hill a little bit, make it even smaller, so it fits in with the image. And now, if I wanted the car to actually drive down the hill and go into the water, I can do that custom path that I was telling you about. So here's how you do the custom animation paths. you go up to animation, and you use this little arrow here for more, and click there, and then come down to this option, custom path. And when you click there, you're able to, since this is the graphic that's highlighted, PowerPoint knows that's the object you're wanting to animate. So I hold my left mouse button down near it, and then just drag and click, and click, and click some more until I get it to go actually off the slide. And once it's there, you can double click your left mouse button, and it takes the car off the screen. Now you notice when I play this, it's awfully fast. So let's watch it. So here's, if I go ahead and click my button, the car zooms off the path way too fast. So what I want to do now is go back and modify the speed of this animation. So I click on my object that I've animated, go up to animation, and I pick the animation pane option. And then over here, I have the animation itself, play from. I'm going to move this over a little bit so you can see it better. I'm going to right button click on here and on this animation option and pick effect options with my left mouse button. And now you can have a smooth start, so it takes a little while for it to get going, and a smooth ending if you want to slow it down. Or if you don't want those, just move those over to the far left. You have a bounce ending if you want to. The thing I want to do right now is timing. Notice start on click. This animation will not start until I click on the slide, and then it will. Or I could use the down arrow key on the keyboard. Right now, the duration is only 2 seconds. So I want to click in there. I could pick 5 seconds, or if I want even more than that, I could say, let's say 15 seconds to travel. So I can type in the information there, and then click OK. And then you can see as it's showing me how slow that goes, the effect that I have implemented here. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these out of the way here, and we'll play this slide again. So now when I click my left mouse button or use my down arrow key, it starts the car and it goes across the water. Now, what I could have done is just had 2 animations sequentially. One would have brought the car down like this, and then when I would have got to this point, I could have turned the car, angled it a little bit, and made it come across that way, depending on the GIF file, whether I could do it or not, make it look effective. So that's a little bit about how you do a GIF with the animation features in the PowerPoint program. I'm going to come to another GIF file here. Let me see, I'll go to this one. I'm going to get rid of this GIF off of here. So this is an animated GIF. We saw it, the true-false meter moving up and down. If we wanted to animate this GIF, in addition to the animations built into it, let me make it a little bit larger. I can go back to the animation tool, and I can have it fly in from the bottom. And once you do that and you test it out with your slideshow from current slide, and you click, and it brings it in. You may say, well, I don't really like that particular animation. Speed, again, you go to your animation option, and you pick your animation pane. It'll bring up this option, and you right button click on that animation, go to effects, and then you can do your timing again. Right now it's a half a second, so you might want that to be 2 seconds. and then it'll more slowly come into the picture. And of course, there are all kinds of animation effects that you can add to this particular animation. We just brought it in. If you want to add an animation to that object, not just change the animation, we could pick the zoom tool. We could add another animation to that same object. We could do a color plussing. We could add another animation that does a bounce. So we do all these different animations, and we can change the sequence in which they occur by coming over here to the animation pane and just moving left mouse button, moving these around and shifting the sequence in which the animations take place. And again, you can right button click on these and do your effect options, so you can say where the vanishing point is for the object. In this case, we can change our timings, so we could change the timing on that and so on. They have all different options. Now, another thing to look at in the animation pane, if you click on this particular first one that I have, it says on click, which is good for the first one. But maybe the second one, I don't want to have to keep clicking, so I say after previous. And I'll do that on each one of these, after previous. So now these will take place after I click on that first one. They'll all happen at one after the other. So I'll go to slideshow from current slide, and my first thing I have to do is click. But now my hands are off, and we have a sequence of animations that are being played one after the other. So that gives you an idea of how to tweak the animations, add to an animation, and so on. And then we come down here. I'll get rid of this one and increase this one a little bit. And I'll get rid of all the rest of these here. So this could be an animation, for example, Gif Animations. Now, I didn't animate either one of these except to download them. And you can see this Gif file just has somebody blinking over here, and then this person looking shocked or something. So you can find these emotive type of Gif files to illustrate certain kind of events and things that have happened in a case or for a client and so on. But then again, you can animate these, have one come in after the other in sequence. So this one, if I go up to animation and I can come up to appear, and then I click on this one and I can say make this one appear. So we have two different animations, one appearing after the other. And again, if I want to make the click be the action, the trigger, I have to make sure this is on click for both of them, which I do in this case. So now when I play this slide, nothing shows up. Maybe it'd have some words on here, and then I would click and show this particular and talk a little bit about the shock that occurred and all that stuff. And then over here, click and have this particular event take place. So you can do this in sequence as well. So that's a lot right there about the animation of GIF files and using them in conjunction with your cases. Remember, transparent backgrounds are important when you're downloading GIFs or creating them. So you can put these objects in front of others without having the background that's behind it. Like if this was white background, it would show up on the background that you have, and then it wouldn't look as realistic. So that's an object that I wanted to point out to you. And now what I want to do is get into Smartart and the animating of Smartart itself. So this slide, I'll just show you some of these smart Smartart objects that I've used on this slide presentation. And by the way, these slide presentations, these demos, are available in our download and our filing cabinet. So you can download these to study them over, play them, and see how they're put together after our session today. So this one here is a sequence of images out of that video that we had extrapolated images out of, giving times and so on. Let's take a look at how this works. This is a Smartart objects that I've used, and now I've animated it. So I'm going to go ahead and say, play this from the current slide, and whoops, and the times just show up like that. Now, if I wanted to actually animate this smart object, this is just with the pictures in it with no animation. I can click on it and I can animate it. And I'll show you that in a little bit, how we can make these things appear one after the other instead of all at the same time. So give you an example of that here. So let's go ahead and start from scratch. I'm going to erase this off of here. I'm going to go up to the insert button and come over to Smartart and click there. And so here are a bunch of different types of smart art. I'm going to come down to the picture option and see what we have here. We have a number of options with pictures that we could use in connection with the object. Let's see, I think I want to pick, for the purpose of this demo, this one here. So here's our smart object, and working with the smart objects, you have the little guide over here at the left, and I'm going to say last frame, and I'll put in here middle frame and first frame. So now what I want to do is put in some pictures. So I'm going to go ahead and click in this little icon and go out to pick up some images that I can put into this smart art. So I'm going to go ahead and come down to some images and populate these. Double click on that little icon and then go to wherever you have your images stored for the demonstration and put those into these little circles. So now I have my smart art all set up here, and I can increase the size of it by grabbing these corners. And now if I play the slide, it all shows up at the same time, and it doesn't really give me a chance to animate it, first frame, middle frame, last frame. I do have a magnify tool, which I could use to zoom in on these graphics, and that's built into PowerPoint. But I still would like to add a little pizzazz, a little animation to this particular smart art. So to do that, I come up to the animation pane itself, and now let's say I want to have this appear. But problem is, when I play it, and go ahead and, or maybe I'll do a fade. I think that would work better. Do a fade, and I do the slideshow from current slide, and I click. It all fades in at the same time instead of one after the other. So I need to somehow animate this smart art. Now I come over here to the animation pane. Let me get this a little bit bigger here. And over here on the far right, there is the animation pane. So you go to animation, click on animation pane, and you'll see this over here. And I right button click on this smart art animation, and I come down to effect options. Now this time, you'll see something, a new tab in the animation effects pane. You'll see it's got Smartart animation, which is unique because these Smartarts have a unique way of animating them. And when I click there, you notice it says group graphic as one object, which is not what I want. So I click that, and I can say all at once, or I can say one by one, which is what I want. And once I pick that, I click OK, and you can see that they animate in the Smartart for me. So when I can come to add some more time to it up here, duration, I want that to last a lot longer. And if I go back over here to my effects for my Smartart, one by one, I have timings here also. So notice I could set it up here, 3 seconds, or I could do it here, duration. And then I can increase that. Notice it says start. Again, click is what I want, not with previous. But I could do with previous or after previous. And then click OK. Now when I go ahead and play the slideshow from the current slide, you can see the graphic will appear, and then last frame, which is actually I put in the images in the wrong order, but you'll get the idea here. And then the other one shows up, middle frame, and then finally our first frame. So all of the Smartart that's there can be animated in this way. I'm going to show you another one here. This one I've already animated. This is a sequential Smartart, circular. So when I play this one, I use the click button instead of having it appear after. Automatically, I'm clicking so I can pause the animation as I'm talking about it. And then this one here is another Smartart, and you could have your points that you're making show up and graphics inside of these. And then there are some background lines that can show up. If you go back over and talk about a point, you can animate it that way. Now, I wanted to show you on this. If you wanted to go backwards in an animation, you can use your up arrow key on the keyboard. So that's what I'm doing here, up arrow. You can go back to point 1. Now I'm using my down arrow. And then they say, well, go back to point 1. Okay, I'm back there. And then come back to point 2. So using your up and down arrow keys during an animation of a Smartart object is very effective as well. Now here's another example of Smartart. This is a matrix type of Smartart. I use the zoom feature animation for that part of it, and then a zoom on that one, a zoom, and a zoom. And again, I can use the up and down arrow keys to go backwards and forwards in the animation of that Smartart object. Here's another Smartart object that I've chosen that shows sort of contending forces, you might say. And this one I've animated like this. Instead of having them move in, I have used an effective glow, color glow option that animates these. So you can kind of emphasize whichever one you're talking about in the terms of the forces. And of course, these numbers, whatever you want to put into these, you can type in your text. I'm going to show you this on this one, like if this is, say, well, let's say power from electricity, right? So you notice how it fits inside of the image. But now if I had something I wanted to stay below that, I can click up here on the left and then hit the Shift Enter key, and then I can type in whatever information I want without it making another point, you see. And the same thing here. I could start typing, and if you keep on typing, it'll wrap automatically for you as well. So that's a little bit something about all of the Smartart you can type inside of, and that this will take place. I'm going to go backwards on this one, because here, if on this one you click on the far right of the point and you hit the Enter key, it will add another graphic. So this could be 1A or something. Again, if I want something under 2, I can hit there and then put in 2A. And if you wanted to tab these in, use the tab key, you can put the points in the little box underneath the particular main point that that you are making, so you can have like an outline down below this Smartart. And the way I get at this again is when you have clicked on your Smartart, there's a little arrow here that you can click on to get this out. Now, could I type right on the graphic itself? Yes, I could, but I find that that's not as useful as using this outline mode over here on the far left. Now, here's another Smartart. I'll show you how I animated this one. So the graphic comes in, and then these pieces of text fly in to the graphic itself. And then this is a pyramid. I think I got this one reversed, but you get the idea here. So from the current slide, smoking gun comes after review and after production. So it's kind of a pyramid of e-discovery, if you will. Then we have this one. Let me show you how this one works. So the hacker was caught January 1st, and trial sentenced January 3rd, and pardoned, and so on. So it's another use of one of the Smartart graphics.